My name is Sultan bin Rashid Al Saud. I was 42 years old when the events that changed my life began to unfold. The date was March 14, 2025, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. On that day, something very simple happened, yet it slowly turned my entire life upside down. I found myself reading the Bible for the very first time in my life. At first, it was only curiosity, but as the words began to settle into my heart, something inside me started to change in a way I did not expect. To understand why this moment was so serious, you must first understand who I was and the world I lived in. I was born into a respected branch of the Saudi royal family. My father was a government advisor who worked closely with senior members of the royal court. Many people in our city respected him deeply because he was known as a disciplined and religious man. My mother came from another respected family, known for their strong traditions and deep loyalty to our culture. Our family home was large, beautiful, and guarded by security officers at all times. From the outside, our life looked perfect. We had comfort, influence, and protection. But with that comfort came strict expectations about how we should think, speak, and believe. From a very young age, my life followed a carefully planned path. I attended one of the most respected schools in Riyadh, where many children from powerful families studied. My teachers expected excellence from me because of my family name. I studied Arabic literature, political history, and religious education. Later, when I became older, my father arranged for me to continue my studies in international relations at a university in London. My education was meant to prepare me for leadership, diplomacy, and service within our country's political and royal structures. And in many ways, that is exactly what happened. After returning to Saudi Arabia, I began working within government circles, assisting in diplomatic meetings and national development projects. My daily life was filled with formal meetings, official gatherings, and social events with influential families. Many people treated me with respect simply because of my family background. I traveled often, attended conferences, and spoke with leaders from different nations. But despite this successful life, there was always a quiet part of my mind that wondered about things I had never explored. During my years studying abroad, I met many people from different cultures and religions. Some of them lived very peaceful and kind lives, even though their beliefs were different from mine. At the time, I did not think deeply about it. I simply respected them and continued my own path. Years later, however, something unexpected happened. One evening, after returning from an international conference, I was reviewing documents in my private study. A foreign colleague who had visited earlier that week had accidentally left a small book on the table. At first, I thought it was just another travel notebook. But when I picked it up, I realized it was a Bible. I remember staring at the cover for several minutes. A strange feeling filled my chest. In my country, reading such a book was not something a man in my position would normally do. I knew very well that if people around me discovered it, many questions would immediately arise. Still, curiosity slowly pushed away my hesitation. I opened the book carefully and began reading some of the early pages. At first, I read only a few sentences, but those sentences made me feel something I had never experienced before. The words spoke about mercy, forgiveness, and love in a way that felt deeply personal. That night, I closed the book and placed it back on the table, telling myself it was only curiosity. But in the days that followed, my mind kept returning to those words. Something inside me had started moving quietly, like a door opening very slowly in the darkness. At that time, I had no idea that this small moment of curiosity would eventually bring fear, pressure, and persecution into my life. I did not know that powerful people around me would soon begin questioning my loyalty, my beliefs, and even my place within my own family. All I knew at that moment was that a simple book had somehow begun to disturb the peace of my carefully controlled life. The Bible that had been left behind by my foreign colleague remained on the small wooden table in my study. For 3 days, I avoided touching it again. Every time I entered the room, my eyes moved toward that book. It felt almost like the book itself was waiting for me. I knew that if anyone close to my family discovered that I was reading it, they would immediately become suspicious. In my environment, curiosity about other religious books was not something people around me would easily accept. One evening, after returning from a long government meeting, I sat alone in my study. The house was quiet. Most of the staff had finished their duties for the day. Outside the large window, the lights of Riyadh were shining across the city like a sea of gold. My heart was beating faster than usual. I slowly picked up the Bible again. At first, I only planned to read for a few minutes, but as I turned the pages, I found myself reading about the life and teachings of Jesus. The words were simple, yet they carried a deep meaning that I had never experienced before. As I continued reading, something inside my chest began to feel heavy. It was not fear alone, it was something deeper, something that made me think about my life, my power, and the kind of person I had become. For the first time in many years, I felt quiet inside. That night, I read for almost an hour before closing the book and placing it back on the table. The next morning, I went to visit my father at his office. He was reviewing several government documents when I arrived. His assistants moved respectfully around the room as he worked. My father was a man who valued discipline and loyalty above everything else. His entire life had been built on protecting the honor of our family and the traditions of our society. While we spoke about political matters, he studied my face carefully. He later told me that he noticed I seemed distracted and unusually quiet. He revealed to me that men in our position must guard their thoughts carefully because even curiosity can lead a person into trouble. At that moment, I felt a cold wave move through my body. I had not told him anything about the Bible, yet his words felt like a warning. That night, when I returned home, I locked my study door before opening the book again. Days slowly turned into weeks. Every evening, I found myself returning to those pages. I read quietly, often stopping to think deeply about what I had just read. Sometimes I closed the book and walked across the room trying to calm the questions growing in my mind. But secrets rarely remain hidden for long. One afternoon, a family driver entered my study to deliver documents that had arrived from the ministry. The Bible was resting on the table beside my chair. He froze for a moment when he saw it. His face changed quickly. He tried to remain calm, but I could see confusion and fear in his eyes. He carefully placed the documents on the table and left the room without speaking much. Later that evening, the chief house manager approached me. His voice sounded nervous as he explained that some of the staff had become worried about something they had seen. He revealed to me that rumors inside large households spread very quickly. He warned me that certain objects in my study might create serious misunderstandings if the wrong person noticed them. At that moment, I understood that my secret was already beginning to escape the walls of my private room. Within 2 days, my older cousin requested a private meeting with me. He arrived at my house late in the evening. His face looked serious, and his voice carried concern mixed with suspicion. He explained to me that some people had reported strange behavior coming from my study room. He told me that men from our family must protect the reputation of our name. He revealed to me that even small rumors could damage the honor our fathers had worked their whole lives to build. As he spoke, I felt a heavy pressure growing inside my chest. I realized something painful. Simply reading a book had already begun creating fear around me. From that moment, I understood that my curiosity was no longer just a private matter. It was becoming a problem that could place me under watch, suspicion, and eventually serious persecution. And deep inside my heart, another realization slowly began to form. If the truth I was discovering inside that book continued to grow inside me, the consequences would be far greater than rumors among house staff. It could cost me my position, my family's trust, and perhaps even my safety. By this time, I had already read many pages of the Bible in secret inside my study room. I remember one evening very clearly. The air outside my window was warm, and the city lights of Riyadh were shining like quiet stars on the ground. I was sitting alone on a soft chair while holding the book. He told me that the words inside the book spoke about forgiveness, kindness, and a love that does not disappear even when people make mistakes. He showed me stories of people who were once afraid but later found peace inside their hearts. As I continued reading, I felt something strange and soft inside my chest, like a small light trying to grow inside a dark room. It was not excitement alone, it was also fear, because I knew that if this feeling became stronger, my life might not remain the same. At that time, I began noticing small changes around my house. Some of the guards spoke quietly when I passed them. One of the senior family servants showed me that people were beginning to ask questions about my study room. He revealed to me that some members of the household believed I was reading something dangerous to our social reputation. I could feel the atmosphere around me slowly becoming colder. My younger sister visited me one afternoon. She was worried and confused. She told me that some relatives were talking about me during family gatherings. She told me that they believed I was spending too much time alone and that isolation was usually a sign of serious spiritual or social trouble in our community. When she spoke, her eyes were filled with sadness more than anger. She told me she was afraid that people would start avoiding our family if rumors continued. I did not answer immediately. I only walked to the window and watched the city for a long time. Inside my heart, I felt torn. On one side was the world I had always known, family honor, social respect, and safety. On the other side was the quiet peace growing inside me whenever I read the book. 2 days later, my father requested that I attend a private family discussion. The meeting took place inside the large family hall where important matters were usually decided. My father spoke gently but with authority. He told me that several family members had become concerned about my recent behavior. He revealed to me that in our society, anything connected with foreign religious ideas could bring serious consequences. He explained that people in powerful positions must be careful because public trust was fragile. While he spoke, I felt sadness inside me. Not because he was angry, but because I could see fear inside his eyes. He told me that he had heard that I was reading a religious book secretly. He did not shout. He only told me that if the information was true, I should think carefully about the future of our family. His words were not threats, but the meaning behind them felt heavy. After the meeting, two senior relatives came to visit me privately. They spoke in low voices. He revealed to me that some people believed my behavior could be seen as betrayal of cultural loyalty. He warned me that powerful families sometimes protect their reputation by isolating members who create social suspicion. From that week, my life slowly changed. Staff members became more distant when speaking to me. Some security officers followed my movements more carefully inside the house compound. I began feeling watched even when I was alone in my study. The worst pain was not the watching, it was the silence. People who used to greet me warmly started speaking to me only when necessary. During family gatherings, I noticed that some people avoided sitting close to me. It felt like standing in a crowded room while invisible walls were growing around my heart. Yet every night, I still opened the book, because inside its words, I found a strange peace that told me I was not alone even when people around me became distant. But I did not know that the hardest persecution was still coming, and it would not only touch my social life, it would soon touch my freedom, my position, and the trust of the family I loved. One morning, I noticed that two of my family guards were standing closer to my study door than usual. They did not speak much. They only watched quietly when I entered or left the room. Later that week, my father called me again. He looked tired when I entered his office. He told me that some important family members had been discussing my behavior. He revealed to me that people were worried that my private reading was becoming a public problem. He spoke slowly, telling me that in our society, reputation was like a wall that protected family honor. Then he told me something that made my heart feel cold. He revealed to me that some members of the royal circle were suggesting that I should reduce my public appearances for some time until the rumors around me disappeared. I understood what he was trying to say. It was not a punishment yet. It was the beginning of isolation. After that meeting, my life changed more. I was no longer invited to certain social gatherings. When I walked inside government buildings, some officials greeted me politely but kept their distance. I began noticing small conversations stopping when I entered a room. It felt like living inside a quiet prison, even though I was still free to walk. The hardest pain came from my extended family. One evening during a family dinner, I sat at the long table while people spoke normally around me, but I noticed that seats near me were left empty. My younger cousin later told me that he or she showed me that some family members were afraid that association with me could bring suspicion from powerful social authorities. I felt sadness, but I remained quiet. At night, when I returned to my study, I opened the Bible again. He told me that people may reject those who follow truth, but love from God does not disappear. Those words became my quiet strength. But persecution soon became more direct. Some staff members inside my house began treating me differently. The house manager told me that some workers were afraid of being questioned if they were seen spending too much time around me. One of the female kitchen workers revealed to me with tears in her eyes that she was afraid people would think she shared my private beliefs. She asked for permission to avoid direct conversation with me unless necessary. Her voice was gentle, but her fear hurt my heart deeply. The security team around my house was also increased. Officially, it was called protection, but inside my heart, I felt it was more like observation. Whenever I walked in the garden at night, I could feel that someone was watching from a distance. Sometimes I imagined that my own shadow was being followed. The most painful persecution came from social silence. In our culture, being ignored by people you once respected is a very deep emotional pain. Some relatives stopped calling me. Messages on my communication device became very few. During religious and family festivals, I sat quietly, watching others celebrate while I felt like a guest inside my own world. But I never forced anyone to accept my reading or my beliefs. I only kept reading the book in secret and praying inside my heart. One night, while sitting alone near the window, I felt very lonely. He showed me inside the book that people who choose truth may suffer, but they are not forgotten. Tears came quietly from my eyes as I thought about my future. I knew that my position in society might be taken away. I knew that my family might distance themselves more. But inside my heart, a small peace was growing, like a small light inside a dark room. And this was the price I paid for choosing the truth I believed in.